Hello, my name is Russell Myers, independent for U.S. President for 2024. One of my policies is to end the drug war, which has destroyed far more lives than the drugs themselves ever could. The first step, which I would take, would be an executive order which legalized marijuana at the federal level. Not decriminalized, legalized. Of course, it would still be regulated the same way that alcohol is regulated. It would also require special dispensaries with trained professionals to advise customers. All right, every single state which has legalized marijuana has seen a decline in overdose deaths and drug-related violent crime. Statistics bear this out. In addition, each state which has legalized marijuana has seen an increase in employment, in tax revenue, and a decrease in drug-related policing expenses. By now, most of you know that marijuana has many legitimate medical and mental health uses, so I won't go into detail on that subject. Many people will not be convinced by humanitarian arguments on this subject, so let me approach this from an economic perspective first. Consider the fact that you pay for all of the expenses which I am about to list. And since 1980, this country has spent trillions of dollars on the war on drugs. Right now, when we consider federal, state, city, and county law enforcement expenses, medical care for overdoses and chronic addiction, then throw in jails and prisons, we currently spend tens to hundreds of billions of dollars a year on the drug war. It is primarily the drug war which has led to the militarization of police, with armored vehicles, expanded SWAT teams, drug detection dogs, etc. In many cases, we have seen raids on homes which occur at the wrong address, sometimes with innocent people being injured or killed. This results in lawsuits with massive settlements often reaching millions of dollars in a single lawsuit. Even if the plaintiff loses the lawsuit, it costs many thousands in legal fees for municipalities and police departments to defend against the suit. For addictive substances, addiction treatment costs an estimated $10,000 a year per person. By comparison, it is estimated that it costs anywhere from $30,000 a year to over $70,000 a year to incarcerate one prisoner, depending on what state you live in. This expense does not include the expenses of policing and court costs. Addiction treatment could very well be covered under universal health care rather than creating a separate funding and oversight system. Incarceration does not lead to lower rates of addiction. It does the opposite. Many people who are incarcerated go into jail or prison without an addiction, then become addicted while incarcerated. I know this all too well because I have witnessed it firsthand many times. I have worked as a nurse in corrections and addiction treatment. But the point on that economically being that it winds up costing more money because that person is going to wind up needing treatment for often while they are incarcerated. Then they become addicted, they get out, and then they get arrested for being in possession of or violating probation. So they wind up going back to prison. So it costs you more money. Yes, it costs you more money. The war on drugs has also led to more dangerous substances being produced, such as flakka, bath salts, artificial marijuana, and fexofentanyl. These substances have been developed as a response to the drug war. In most cases, you have absolutely no idea what chemicals are used in the production of illegal drugs or under what conditions they are manufactured. I have personally seen people die from these substances. If addiction were treated as an illness instead of a crime, then substances would be produced by licensed, monitored manufacturers in clean to sterile conditions with standardized dosages. This would mean fewer illnesses, overdoses, infections, and deaths due to drug use. As far as any drugs like marijuana being sold as recreational, I have already noted that regulating and taxing these substances leads to higher tax revenue, more jobs, and lower costs for policing and incarceration. The expenses related to the drug war do not stop at our own border. The expenses include federal personnel located in other countries like Colombia. Those personnel are often highly militarized, making them extremely expensive to maintain. The truth is, we don't even know how much these enforcement efforts cost because they are usually covert. Now let's take a look at the humanitarian side. We cannot judge a person who becomes addicted. There are many reasons people become addicted. It may be a lapse of judgment, anxiety, depression, or pain control. Many people have become addicted to opiates because of medications legally prescribed by a doctor. Then, when the prescription runs out, they find themselves going into withdrawal. We have seen wildly popular artists, singers, writers, actors, actresses become addicted or even die from drug use. We have seen conservative commentators who are addicted, all the while they are raging in favor of stricter drug control policies. We have seen the son of our current president badly addicted. Most of these people escape incarceration because of status. For them, it is presented as an illness which they cannot control. Yet, if a poor person has the exact same addiction, they will go to jail or prison and receive no treatment. Incarcerating people for addiction tears families apart. This often leaves the rest of the family unable to provide them for themselves, so they wind up on public assistance when they were not before the arrest. This also often leaves children without a previously present and otherwise responsible parent. If the parent is single, it may leave those children in the foster care system, which is notorious for the frequency of emotional, physical, and sexual abuse. it is extremely common for the children of incarcerated parents to deal with depression, feelings of abandonment, and this can frequently lead to poor decision making, sexual indiscretion, drug use, and addiction of their own, and difficulty maintaining social relationships. One cannot claim to support the family structure while dehumanizing so many in our society. Drug addiction causes much higher rates of infectious disease, be that HIV, hepatitis, TB, etc. This becomes an expense and a concern for any community. Drug addiction frequently leads to prostitution, a choice which the majority of sex workers would not make if not for supporting their addiction. Other times, sex workers enter that trade for financial reasons and wind up addicted as a means of dealing with emotional, possibly physical trauma inherent in the trade. In worst-case scenarios, most of us have heard of addicted parents pimping out their underage children as a means of supporting their addiction. Drug use being considered a crime leads to racial profiling by police. Innocent people being caught in the crossfire between police, drug dealers, and gangs. It turns entire neighborhoods into open-air prisons and war zones. I know this extremely well because I grew up in such a war zone. One thing I cannot claim to have experienced is the terror which minorities often experience when being pulled over by police. Then having their car searched and evidence planted, sending me to prison for an offense that I did not commit. I have not experienced that. While I once very narrowly avoided being assaulted by a police officer, I cannot say I have ever genuinely feared being shot when I was pulled over. For the record, I refuse to address addiction as a habit. This is not something like placing your car keys in a certain place when you walk in the door. Even if it takes an effort, you can control a habit. An addiction controls you. It continues to control you. We have heard many addicts say that they are a recovering addict, even when they have not used for years. Personally, I have congratulated many former addicts when they tell me they have not used in years or even months or weeks. They need that recognition, and it costs nothing at all to give that recognition and praise. Even if a person becomes addicted due to pain control or recreational use, it most often leads to depression, as that person sees their life spiral out of control and they see no way out. Illegal drug manufacturing causes safety concerns. There have probably been cases you have heard of in your own community where a drug lab exploded or caught fire, sometimes in apartment complexes, leading to a number of innocent people losing their homes, being severely injured, or dying. If those substances were being produced commercially, this danger would not exist. When we hear the stereotypical experts speaking about drug use and addiction, the ones you are most likely to hear are from law enforcement, politicians, and corporate media. I urge you to take a good, hard look at their profit motives. Never once will they ever make a single suggestion which reduces the cost of what is a societal and all too human problem. They seek campaign donations, advertising revenue, and infinitely expanding police or prison budgets. I have no such profit motive. My motive is entirely human and humane. My concern is about the individual, the family, society, and freeing up money now spent on destroying these and using that money in far more constructive ways for all of us. Addiction treatment should not be viewed as, excuse me, I worded that, who said that wrong, but addiction treatment should not be viewed as or only available to the wealthy. The consequences of drug use and addiction should not be reliant on income level. As addiction has become far more common throughout our society, it has become what it always should have been, a problem which we need to address as a society. Every one of us knows someone that is or has been addicted to some form of substance, from alcohol to opiates to other substances. If you know or have known a current or former addict and saw them as entirely human, then you should be able to understand that all of those who suffer through addiction are human as well. If you have ever personally been addicted, then you understand this even more intently. It is past time for this to be seen as it should be seen. Beyond time for us to deal with this in a humane and humanistic manner. Beyond time that we stop sending people to prison repeatedly while offering no help or support. Beyond time that we stop spending billions upon trillions of wasted, counterproductive funds on jails and prisons for non-violent drug crimes. Beyond time that we stop living in terror. Beyond time that we stop pointing fingers and offer a hand to assist one another. So please share this video, talk about these subjects. If you can, please donate $1 a month or whatever you can afford to help expand the channel and the campaign. And I will catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your support.